Welcome back to another episode of the Packs What She Said podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Maggie Loney, joined as always by Perri Goldstein, back on a Victory Monday for the first time in far too long. The Packers beat the Giants with Perri in attendance, 27-20 at MetLife Stadium, returning home this Sunday to take on the Vikings. But plenty to talk about in this one. 27-20 victory against Jameis Winston, Mike Kafka's first, official game as interim head coach. It was kind of a weird one, I think, but certainly the Packers pulled it out with their magic number 27 when it came to points. What were your initial takeaways?
Yeah, that seems to be their favorite way to win, just scoring 27 points. Takeaways were that watching it live and then watching like the replay back after sleeping on the game, very, very different reactions. Live was definitely a little bit more frustrating because you're wondering while you're sitting there like why it feels like the Giants can kind of just like move the ball down the field so easily and they're not, we just watched this defense like clamp down on the Eagles, who are the number one seed in the NFC, and like the Giants can like barely field a football team. So that was like just very frustrating, and it still felt a little bit like things were hard on offense, even though Jordan Love was balling out. And just all the injuries. It felt like there was an injury timeout like every 5 minutes. But then sleeping on it and the rewatch, it wasn't necessarily as frustrating to watch. I mean, obviously, you know that the Packers end up winning, so that changes your calculus a bit. But I thought there were a lot more positive takeaways than how it felt live. So we can talk about those. But that was like kind of the big key difference. I would say that few main things that I am thinking about after this game. One is, we talked about it pre-show, and I know we're going to dive into it now, is just like how well the offensive line played in this game, or like relative well to the way that they've been playing. That Jordan was a baller, and that the stats are not going to show it, but he had an actually fantastic game. And that this injury report is pretty legit, but it also doesn't feel like anything is season ending for anybody. So they actually kind of came out of MetLife unscathed, which is not a guarantee that the MetLife monster doesn't rear its head and grab you. So those are the three.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it really well. I think that is kind of what gets buried in this. And I understand, like, I had my own frustrations watching this one, right? Like, the Packers have yet to play what feels like a complete 4-quarter game, 3 phases performance. If something, like the defense balls out one week, and then you look and the offense is putting up points, and it feels like the defense is letting guys march down the field, or you try a new kicker and they all of a sudden can't kick extra points either. Like, there is a frustrating element as a fan to see kind of the ebbs and flows week to week, where it seems like there's always something new. If you could hang your hat on like the offense is humming, but the offensive line is struggling, like you would know going into each week kind of where the Achilles heel was. But it feels like each week there's a new one. And I think that is why Packers fans get so frustrated watching the product. But when you look at it holistically, to your point, it was a good win for the Packers, 27-20, put up a ton of points on offense and left a ton of points on the board. And, I think it's so interesting how quick to jump ship some of the Packer fan base can be on Jordan Love, without truly if you look at the stat sheet, it's not impressive, right? 13 of 24, not factoring in these 7 drops from his wide receivers and his receiving core, right? Or, one of the touchdowns that Malik Willis had, I'm sure in that same scenario, Jordan Love throws a similar touchdown pass, right? So taking 2 sacks, he made a lot of plays happen with his legs, and that was a credit to him, like stepping up into the pocket instead of throwing the ball away. He found Savion Williams for that really nice completion. I thought that he had a really excellent performance and made some real big time throws and big time moments. And I think the result, would be different had he not gone down with the shoulder injury and had to come out of the game. Like, the only criticism I think I would have of the offense is that you'd like to see Matt LaFleur call some of the stuff he calls from Malik Willis when Jordan Love is out there.
Yeah.
Don't complicate it because it's Jordan. The stuff
Right.
that works with Malik, I think you can also run effectively with Jordan Love.
I think it's interesting. I think Jordan probably has to be a bit of a more confident runner. Like there's something about Malik's, ability to take off. That's the only difference, right?
Right.
And also Jordan just definitely has a bigger arm,
Mhm.
but like the Venn diagram is quite large between the two. So I think your point still stands. I don't know how much I really want Jordan to be running. Like I know
Fair,
literally
yeah.
last week I was like, call more QB draws. And I'm like, maybe don't after watching him take that hit because it
Mhm.
looked really scary on the field. Um, but I do think there's something to be said for, and I know this show is not meant to be about Malik Willis, but like he went in for that, obviously the one drive ended up
Yeah.
being a touchdown drive, and you don't really like skip a beat. I mean, the only thing I was thinking in that moment was, I hope this, I mean, it looked like a concussion to Jordan, and that's initially like what I thought it was. When he went back into the locker room, I was like, oh, they must like think he has a concussion. Obviously it wasn't, it was his shoulder, but you're not thinking it's season ending,
Yeah.
or anything too serious. So you're like, all right, well, if the team has to finish this game with Malik Willis, like I think that's actually probably fine.
Mhm.
It's really incredible that you can, and also a testament to Matt LaFleur and this coaching staff
Yeah.
to have a backup quarterback that is so able to just run your offense, to your point, in the exact way that he would like to, and then drive down the field and tie the game. Like that was a huge momentum shift for the Packers in that game. And then of course, Jordan comes back and he runs out onto the field and everyone's cheering. The MetLife was 50% Packers fans. And so like there's this huge roar from the crowd, and he goes in, and you don't need to have Malik for more than that one drive. But it really says a lot that you're not too worried about this just being like, okay, well, we know that this is an L now because our backup QB's in. Like they can win games with him.
Yeah, you can see why the Packers are not looking to move him anytime soon, because he's come in big moments, as we saw him win 2 games last season. He had to come in spurts for Jordan last year. We saw him come in
Mhm.
now this year, and 2 throws, 2 completions, and a touchdown. Like, just like these random little bananas stats on his career sheet, and just effective and efficient when he's in there. So, yeah, absolute credit to Malik Willis. But I would like to see Matt LaFleur, I think, give Jordan just like a little bit of that. But I agree with you that
Yeah.
yes, I don't want Jordan to be like, a primary runner or anything.
No, he's not a Lamar. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not Caleb Williams. I don't want him to be. He
Mm-mm.
just like is silly body when he runs.
Let him be silly body.
Let him be silly body. I also like someone needs to teach that boy how to slide. Like, please. We need a slide clinic for Jordan. But yeah, let's talk about the drops. And let's
Yeah.
also talk about the flip side of that, which was Christian Watson. Um, I think that we have forgotten like what this offense looks like with Christian Watson in. It's really fun. I know we talk all the time about like him being the field stretcher, and he's like just such an incredible deep ball threat. And obviously we saw that in this game, but there's also something to be said for his like contested catch ability anywhere
Mhm.
on the field at any time. And I know I've been preaching this for a very long time, and I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I really love to see Matt like use him in a variety of different ways, not just as a deep threat. However, if he continues to be one that catches the ball, every single time except for one in a game, then it doesn't really matter because he can be that guy. But he really, I don't know what this game or this offense would have looked like without him on Sunday. Just super, super important to step up when everyone else was kind of struggling.
Yeah, and we talked about it, we've joked about it earlier this season, but like the thought of the mesh concepts, you're looking to get like the intermediate passing game going. You've got Christian Watson, Jaden Reed's coming back, and Matthew Golden. Like, what are you doing? Those would be such beautiful routes for your wide receiver tree to go after if you're trying to attack like the middle, the intermediate part of the field. But yeah,
Mhm.
I agree. It was a really uncharacteristic day from like Romeo Dobbs. Obviously, he had 4 receptions on 8 targets, and he left big plays out there, which is kind of surprising for him. But he has had his drop issues in the past. But agree with you that Christian Watson kind of put the offense on his back. Luke Musgrave continues to struggle. I thought it was interesting today to hear Matt LaFleur say that the lack of snaps in the second half wasn't intentional. Like, it wasn't a punishment for him. It was he basically said that he talked to the coaching staff about that decision. So I thought that was really interesting
Hmm.
that it wasn't like a Matt LaFleur decision. It was, probably the tight ends coach saying like, "Hey, Josh Wiley had a touchdown. Let's ride the hot hand here and keep
Right.
him going." But curious, how many opportunities Luke is going to get. And I think he's going to still get a ton, right? Because they don't have that many other options at tight end, but you would like to see him start to put it together before, the joke was that he can't stay on his feet when he catches the ball. And now it seems like he can't catch the
Catch the
ball.
ball.
So, like, we're regressing. We should
Yeah.
be progressing and taking strides here going into the season.
Yeah, I know we were texting about this during the game, and it's hard for me to watch this happen with him because he's been given an opportunity that like doesn't come about very often to step up to be, tight end one. This is the only time it's going to happen because Tucker has just so far and away like taken that role and run with it and is not giving it up. And the only reason he's given it up is because he's out for the season. And instead of Luke kind of stepping up to the plate as like that next man up, he's really having a hard time. And I think regression is actually a really good word. I don't know if there's like the need to get into the rhythm of it all because he hasn't been asked to do this, or I did see Zach Cruz today tweet like he's concerned about the role in which they're using him. Like they're just trying to kind of replace Tucker, and that's just
Not going to
who,
happen. Yeah.
no, that's not who Luke is. And if they're going to tweak maybe the play calling for like when he gets the ball in certain situations, because these throws to the flat, like they're just not working. I mean, he can't even catch he should be able to, like, let's make that very clear, but he can't catch them. He can't get yards after the catch. He's struggling to block. Like it's not a good situation. So they're gonna either need to fit some things around him and I probably both, he's gonna have to start to accelerate that development.
Yeah, well said. I do want to talk about another highlight. You kind of touched on it already before we shift to like the defense here, but offensive line. I haven't gone back and like dug deep into the tape when it comes to the offensive line play, but just like passing the eye test, even with Josh Jacobs, being injured and kind of being removed from the game, 128 yards on the ground. Emmanuel Wilson came in for 40 yards, had a touchdown. They had the really nice end around with Bo Melton. But I thought that as far as, pass blocking was concerned and even some run blocking in there, like the offensive line potentially had what you could call it its best game of the season, which, I mean, there were still times where certain players struggled, right? Like Jordan Morgan, I think, had a rough day at the office against Dexter Lawrence, as a lot of guards would have a rough day at the office. Like totally understandable and fair. But I thought that Aaron Banks passed the eye test. I thought he had a nice game. I don't know if that's him getting healthier. I didn't necessarily think there was any like drop off with Sean Ryan coming in, which I think says a lot about him and his ability to come in. But again, the experiment was over at right guard, right? Sean Ryan didn't have the opportunity to rotate in with Jordan Morgan because now he is in one of the starting positions. So at least the line that they trotted out there on Sunday, I thought played about as well as you could ask them to.
Yeah, I mean, that's who they're going to be the rest of the season.
Right.
So, few thoughts. One is eye test. Yeah, I agree. I think live it was very clear on the majority of passing snaps how much time and protection Jordan had. You could like very clearly see the pocket and Jordan's like ability to maneuver within the pocket, which is really all that you can ask for. They obviously got a decent amount of pressure on him, which you again would expect from a duo like Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence. Like that's just an excellent duo up front. So they got their due for sure. The run game to me, like I was talking about this with Andy Herman after when we did our post-game show last night, and I thought that it was really remarkable how Emmanuel Wilson came in and just like the run game didn't really skip a beat when the Packers lost Josh Jacobs in this game. And I think the takeaway from that was it still wasn't good. It's just that the run game hasn't really been that good this season. So
And the
yes,
Giants' run defense is abysmal.
abysmal. And so yes, it didn't drop off, but it also wasn't good. And so the question remains now really is like, if you can't have a big day on the ground against this Giants defense, like what does that mean for your run game? And it's fine if Jordan's playing like he is. So we've all been screaming for it, like the let Jordan cook. Like if you want to kind of lean into the way he's playing, Toyotathon begins this week. Go for it. But I am still a little concerned about the run game. I thought Emmanuel Wilson did like I said, a really good job finding holes, and he obviously had his rushing touchdown, which wasn't necessarily that easy of a touchdown. So it was serviceable, but I thought the line did a much better job pass protecting than they did run blocking. Also pass protecting with the help of, Chris Brooks and the other, tight ends and running backs. But yeah, it's a promising little jump up for this line. And that's kind of really all that you can hope for considering the way they've been playing.
Yeah, last thing I think is just worth noting, about the offense is that they fixed that rhythm on third down. Like we saw them struggle so mightily against Philly. And again, we're talking about different calibers of defense. Like this is understandable when you're playing the defense that Philly has, especially up front. But 7 of 11 for 63% efficiency is just fantastic. They like skyrocketed back into being like the most efficient offense in the league on third down. So I thought that was certainly something, if we're talking about getting into a rhythm, they certainly had more manageable third downs, and they weren't putting themselves continuously behind the sticks, which was nice to see finally from this offense. But I think we spent a little bit more time talking about the offense than we expected to. So let's go ahead and shift to the defensive side of the ball, because again, you put the clamps on the Super Bowl champs and you hold them to 10 points at Lambeau Field, and then you come to MetLife and you give up 20 to Jameis Winston, who is throwing to Wan'Dale Robinson. Like that was like the only player he had available. Darius Slayton's not playing.
Isaiah Hodgins.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors was on IR. So you're Cam Scadabo, so you're just losing like all of your key pieces of the offense. So it was interesting from this Packers defense.
Yeah. I think you said it perfectly. Just interesting and confusing. Who are they? I don't know. They dropped 4 interceptions.
I know.
Like they dropped 4 interceptions. Get the jugs machine out. That cannot happen again. Like you do not get that many gifts in the NFL. And if the Packers defense had simply just come up with even half of those, this game looks very different.
Oh yeah.
And we're talking about it very differently. And you and I think are very much in the camp of you can't rely on turnovers. And I still stand by that. Yeah. However, again, if a quarterback is literally going to throw you the ball, it should be the expectation that you catch it. And like Isaiah McDuffie basically like breaking up an interception on Javon Bullard. Like, come on, man. Let's not get in each other's way. I think my key takeaway from this defensive performance is really just like situational football, like bad situational football. They converted 3 fourth downs. They were basically going for it every single time they were on fourth down, because what do they have to lose, right? The Giants have nothing to lose. And the Packers defense again and again had a really hard time getting off the field on those key downs on third and fourth down. So it doesn't really matter to me if you're making big plays on first and second down if you can't get off the field on the important ones. And that was kind of the story of this game for them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's really well said. Like the Giants won the time of possession battle. They went on these really long sustained drives, 35 minutes of possession at the end. 3 of 5 in red zone efficiency, 3 of 3 in goal to go efficiency. They also played well on third down, 50%, like you said, 75% of fourth downs. And they they moved the sticks however they wanted to, right? Like they got 10 first downs rushing, 10 first downs passing. Like it was not like there was one element of this Giants offense that the Packers simply could not stop. And I think that again is like the frustrating piece of this Packers defense and this Packers team in general, right? Like we said it, you said it a couple minutes ago, even that turnovers are volatile. Like you don't want to rely on them to be your identity because when the well runs dry, you need to be able to hang your hat on something else. However, you have got to capitalize on those opportunities because it might not matter against a team like the Giants, but it's going to matter in your next 3 games, in your next 5 games, your next bit of the regular season, getting into the playoffs. Like you are not going to get those kinds of gifts every week.
No.
So I think that is really important. But something that I found interesting, and we talk about this right on the show, PFF is not the Bible, it's not the gospel. If you had to guess, Carrington Valentine, there are 108 corners. Where would you think that he's at right now?
Well, you're saying this, so it leads me to believe it's higher than I would have said. So in the late teens?
5th.
What?
PFF as Carrington Valentine is their 5th overall corner.
Based on what metrics?
He's got a 76 overall, but his coverage grade is what brings him way up compared to his run defense or pass rush, which, you want as a corner. That makes sense. But yeah, they have him at a nice coverage grade. And again, say what you want about PFF. I just thought that was interesting. I like to go and look and see kind of where the trends are for the Packers defense. Micah Parsons, obviously the highest graded defender by a wide margin. Xavier McKinney, second on the team on defense. Carrington Valentine, third. Wow. Lucas Van Ness, 4th. Edge Cooper is 5th. Those are your top 5 based on PFF. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing incredibly. He's so aggressive. I mean, he's going to get one of these eventually. Like I said, bring out the jugs machine. He's going to do it. I love the way he's playing. Like, again, the definition of a guy who was not the preferred starter of the season, was given the chance to be one, and is now saying, you're not taking me off the field ever again, and you shouldn't want to.
Yeah.
So I still believe if there's a unit on this team that I believe in that can do what they need to do against good teams, important games, I believe it's this defense because they've shown enough. I obviously would like to see it over the next couple of weeks, but this performance was mainly just frustrating.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put a pin in that one. And then let's talk about, before we wrap the show, the Packers have 4 of their next 5 against division opponents, 3 of their next 4, 3 in a row. They have the Vikings on Sunday. It's a noon game at Lambeau Field, thankfully. Then they have a very short week going to play at noon on Thanksgiving. So really, really fast turnaround those Thanksgiving games. Not even Thursday night football. You're talking about a noon kickoff in Detroit. So that's going to be really tough. And then they are back home at Lambeau Field to take on the Bears. So quick turnaround for things. You have the mini bye after Thanksgiving, but 3 division games.
Yeah.
We saw the Lions lose on Sunday Night Football to the Eagles. Another really wonky kind of score held the Lions to
9.
Yeah, sub 10. So Packers shouldn't feel necessarily too bad about the 7 they put up against Philly last week either. But yeah, really interesting. Bears beat the Vikings on a last-second field goal after not playing incredibly well. Vikings kind of pulled that same thing on them in week 1, so flip the switch there. But this division is weird, right? The Bears are in first place at 7-3, so there is a lot of football left, especially in the division. And the Packers, this is going to be their most important stretch here coming up.
Yeah, very important. Interesting the way they scheduled these division games. They are not scattered throughout the season. They are bunched up when it is most important. So it's really going to, after this stretch, it's really going to define who is at the top of this division and who is not, and likely who is making the playoffs, because I doubt 3 NFC North teams are making the playoffs again this season. One thing I'll say about the Eagles that I just wanted to note, and then we'll talk about the NFC North, is their defense is crazy. Oh, yeah. Watching their defense they have the best defense in the league, by a mile. Maybe Denver is a close second, but my Lord. I'm not concerned about the Lions in terms of their ability to bounce back from this. I think that Thanksgiving
Right.
game is going to be hella important. It could decide who's winning this division. It could decide seeding. It probably will decide seeding in the playoffs, et cetera, et cetera. What the Packers do against the Vikings and the Bears is a little bit more of like what I'm looking at, because if they go 3-0, great. Okay. If they go 2-1, are you beating up on the Vikings? Are you beating up on the Bears? What do those games look like? Who would you rather win / lose? If you're going to lose, you probably want to lose against the Vikings because, right? So there's also
Mhm.
some like, not that the Packers are thinking about this, they're thinking about going 3-0. But there is some like interesting mathematics with what you would hope would happen in the division and for the seeding in the playoffs. But I don't know how I feel about the Bears. You tell me how you feel about them. Like they're 7-3, so they're clearly like finding ways to win. And if we don't care if the Packers win ugly, I'm damn sure the Bears don't care if they win ugly.
Right.
But there are plenty of weaknesses there, and I think Caleb Williams still looks like a pretty volatile quarterback, just like some good, some bad, some ugly, some excellent, all in the same game. But they're clearly on a streak, and Ben Johnson is doing an excellent job coaching them up.
Yeah, I think you said that all really well. The Bears are winning, and that's what matters in this league. They're doing it in an ugly, kind of confusing fashion, but they're doing everything that we would want the Packers to do, right? Like if the Packers pulled off the game against the Browns and the Panthers, we'd be like, well, that stunk. It's another one in the win column. Like that's what matters. Nobody cares. Like, you don't get glamour points in the league for the way that you do these things. But who are they playing? I think that's where this gets interesting, right? Like they lost originally 2 games to start the season. They lost 2 division games, so that set them back behind the 8 ball already just because of where those losses came in. Then they did beat the Cowboys, right? The Packers didn't do that. They
Mhm.
beat the Raiders, beat the Commanders, you beat the Saints, who are not a good football team. They lost to the Ravens, but then they're on a 3-game win streak now against the Bengals, the Giants, and the Vikings. I think where their strength lies right now is their defensive turnovers. I think it
Mhm.
was Carmen Vitale who posted about it earlier, but she said that this team is kind of reminiscent of who the Packers were and what their identity was last season. Like they don't have a signature win, but their defense is generating a lot of turnovers. And what have we been saying, right? Like when that turnover well runs dry, what does your football team look like?
Yeah.
If the Bears offense can only win with these extra opportunities and these extra cracks at it, you know, if you can keep returning to the bank of turnovers all season, then you're probably okay. But against, better opponents who are able to put up more points when those turnovers don't come, like what does this Bears team look like? And it's not,
Mhm.
again, to discredit what Chicago is doing. Ben Johnson is doing a nice job this season, but I think that the real test is kind of upcoming for the Bears team. They've got the Steelers. We know they've got the Packers, of course, upcoming. So
Twice.
the real test is like what's up next for them because
Mhm.
some of their toughest games are up ahead. So it's great that they padded the stats. They won the games that they were supposed to win to get to 7-3. They're in first place in the division for a reason, but they still have they literally have the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Packers as their next 3. Then they take
Tough.
a break to play the Browns. Then they have the Packers again, the Niners, and they end the season with the Lions. Like that is a
Tough.
tough,
Yeah.
tough way to end your season. So
Like there is a
hey,
world where they only win 1 game in that
yeah,
stretch. There's also a
yeah,
world where they don't, but like that's a really hard way to end. If it was that was the Packers schedule, I'd be like, woof.
yeah,
That's rough. Yeah. I think that was really well said. I do, I mean, I don't think it's sorry. I still think it's worth looking at the way that the Bears are winning on these like very last second.
yeah.
You're right. It's actually, now that I'm saying this out, this is exactly like the Packers last season.
It must be
They
nice
were
to have
like,
a reliable kicker for what it's worth.
right. Like winning in these last second moments, which cannot be discredited. Like they are
Yeah,
winning. The way I felt
yeah,
about the Packers last year, like, yay, Brandon McManus, like coming in clutch. But eventually, as we saw with the Packers, at the end of last season, it comes back
in the
to bite
playoffs.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does come back to bite you. So if I was a Bears fan, I would want to see some level of steady improvement and or a more dominant win to feel confident that they can really make that stretch run. However, it should feel really promising about the development that you've seen from this team from
Yeah.
last year to this year. And, with an excellent head coach and the continued development of Caleb Williams, like they can be very scary. He's very scary running the ball.
Mhm.
Yeah, he is a weapon on the ground. So they've made the NFC North a lot more interesting than initially expected at the start of the season.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we know who the Lions are, right? Which is so fascinating that we're talking about being in the middle of the season and the Lions are outside of the playoff picture. Like, I don't expect it to stay that way, but if
No.
the playoffs were to start today, the 6 seed Packers would travel to the 3rd seed Chicago Bears for the
Weird.
wild card weekend, which is just kind of bananas to think about. So I agree with you. This is going to get really interesting here down the stretch. And this is where we find out a lot about who this Packers team is, right? We said it when they beat the Lions in week 1. Like, the Lions had 2 new coordinators. We knew that the Lions would find their footing, and they have.
Right.
I expect them to still win a ton more football games down the stretch to close out their season and to be one of the top contenders in the playoff picture. Like, that is, you can pretty much write that one in pen, right? That's not a pencil kind of statement. The Vikings, this isn't their year, and they know that. And I think that's okay, because right now you're just trying to figure out JJ McCarthy and getting him comfortable and acclimated into what this offense can be. He's basically having his rookie season since he had to sit
Yeah.
out all of last year. The Bears are the team that I think they have wild card potential. And we kind of said that, I think, to preview the season. Like, the NFC could send 3 representatives, the NFC North, depending on Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams' development. And Caleb Williams still, has a lot of kinks to work out, but he's led some game-winning drives, right? He's getting them in field goal range when he needs to. So I think that it's just, this is going to be where we find out about the Packers, because we saw their record last season. They went 1-5, and a blocked field goal saved them from going 0-6 in the division. So you're already 1-0, and now this is where kind of the real test hits.
Yeah, you got to keep it rolling. You got to build on the momentum and get some wins, especially in the division. Speaking of, we'll be back for our Vikings preview show later this week. Packers are back at Lambeau, so feeling good about needing a home game, needing a home win very badly after the last 2 home Lambeau games. But excited to preview this one because the Vikings are a really interesting team right now.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. We will, of course, like Perri said, be back with that soon. Lots of good games coming up. Lots of fun to talk about this Packers team. Promising injury reports. Obviously, we saw today Jordan Love came back in the game, so I'm sure he's got some soreness there, but he's good to go. Josh Jacobs, no structural damage to the knee, which is the biggest news of the day. So he is considered kind of day-to-day, week-to-week. Unclear if he'll be good to go for Minnesota, but hopefully by Detroit, it'd be nice to have him there. Yeah, thank you as always for listening. The Packers back in the win column here at 6-3-1. You can find the show at PWSS Podcast or at Pax What She Said, everywhere you listen to your favorite shows. Perri at Perri_Goldstein and me at Maggie J. Loney. Thank you as always for listening, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.